It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind size more. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare. So settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome, glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure? It's cultist coffee. What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the office and welcome to the morning grind. How are you all doing? How are you doing? I'm doing well. We were up and at 'em on the channel this morning. We did a productivity stream, something new that I'm experimenting with in order to continue to put anchor points in the day for those of you who need it. If you want to be up, I realize I'm in the central time zone, so I realize that it doesn't work for everybody. But I was up at and started to stream for the members, for the channel members, at 5 this morning. And you know, it's chill. We're doing focus sessions, so if you've got work to do, if you've got work to do, or any creative kind of stuff that you're trying to do, whatever that is, and you're trying to get something accomplished, well, then hey, you know, I've seen those. I've seen sites and things like that where people will hold themselves accountable for doing that and working on time and working on their own things by setting up an appointment with somebody else. And so I was thinking, well, we can do about the same thing here. So if you, I'm not going to keep those live streams up because I'm going to take them down, because it's more about the moment, right? Those productivity streams are more about the moment, coming and joining us, working on what you want to work on and getting accomplished what it is that you want to accomplish. So we're up this morning and we're doing that. Today is going to be a big day. I've got a meeting with Brianna this afternoon about story structure. We're going to be taking a look at the first 10 pages of her first script that has been finished, the horror script, which I noticed that she put out her newsletter the other day and was calling for, I was going to look for beta readers for that script. So I've already seen it. We're going to take a look at especially the first 10 pages in detail and also the first 10 pages of my script. But then tonight at 7 o'clock, we have got a table talk tonight with the entire crew. We're going to be doing a deep dive into the structure of the Barbie movie. As you know, I was critical of the structure of the Barbie movie, but Cameron says that it's actually one that he would use to teach screenwriting. So I must have missed something there in the structure. So he's going to expound. We're going to talk about that in detail. Both Doug and Brianna will also be there tonight. They were supposed to have watched that movie as well. So I think Doug went to see it on Sunday. I believe that Brianna was going to see it on Sunday as well. So that's going to be a big one. That's tonight, 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Good morning, Stray. Good morning. Good morning, PH. Hey, good morning, James. Good to see you. We got BGD here. Good morning. Let's see. Hey, DJ. Good morning, Sable. Good morning. Oh, we got a great cool. Well, at the moment, yeah, 3. I think 3 will be. I think 3 will be enough today. Now, if we get doing more, I realize that sometimes I did like the after the grind productivity session as well. So that depending on what time it is in your time zone. If you were trying to get work done, and you want to join for a productivity session, try to get your like whatever it is you're trying to get done before or after the grind might be better for you personally. So maybe once we get back on schedule, because I'm doing this because I've been off schedule for just months. Once we get back on schedule, we could do it before and after the grind. The grind was originally something to, or one of the original thoughts about the grind was to be a place to hang out and chat and talk about all the things we like after having gotten work done in the morning. So I'm trying to return it to that original idea. All right, hey, let's take our drink here. Everybody got their favorite drink this morning. Let's go ahead and do the mental health portion of the show. Let's breathe. 2 deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Then take a sip of your favorite beverage, and then we're going to be talking about some stuff on RPG design. All right, let's go. And sip. There we go. All right. I want just a place where I can type some notes in, because I want to talk about. So Faded Edge is the game that we have been working on and off here. But I've been thinking a lot about the Cool Name RPG after had this conversation with Mark Tassin last Thursday night on Table Talk, which was great. And also, let's see. And also, I was thinking about that in relationship to some parts of the Index Card RPG. All right. So let's share screen. And let's get to a place where we can type some notes. Okay, RPG design notes. Let me bring that, enlarge this so that you can see it. How's that? Okay. Okay, so we had been talking about this in relationship with the idea about can the player just roll for it? And also thinking about this in terms of the One Ring RPG, which we looked at. Was that yesterday? We were looking at the One Ring RPG. I feel like I feel like a lot's been going on. So yesterday we looked at the One Ring RPG, and I also liked it. I needed a refresher on that because it's different from. Oh yeah, hey everybody, let's roll the D20 and add a modifier to it. And so I was, because just everybody does that. Everybody does that. Although I haven't gotten to watch more of the Dungeon Coach's commentary on the design of his game, but when he was saying that should this be a D20 based game, he was saying that he thought that it had to be. He thought that it had to be. And I was like, well, I mean, there are reasons for that. And there, like I said, there are reasons to do 5e games if you're trying to do a game world, and that's because everybody knows it. But on the other hand, I can't see. I mean, there's so many other ways you could do things, especially if you enable custom dice and things like that. That I think are better in many circumstances than rolling a d20 and adding a modifier to it. Good morning, Brett. Okay, can the player just roll for it? And see if something very unlikely will happen. Let's say that. And this is our example of, hey, I'm going to attack the dragon. Can I please just roll to see if I can kill the dragon? Well, whether or not you answer yes or no on that is going to depend on your game design philosophy and what you want the game to be like. So it's very unlikely to happen. This is like, what if I just happen to shoot the dragon in the eye and it goes and hits his brain? Can that happen? So originally, my original design was no. Mark was definitely yes. Mark was saying yes. Mark was a yes on this question. But here's the question. But I suppose it all hinges on this. What very unlikely? What does that mean? All right. So what does very unlikely mean? A roll of a 20 on a D20? That's a 5% chance. Well, if you roll a 20, you can be successful. Now, maybe so. Sometimes, if you have different mechanics, sometimes for combat, you can say, okay, well, a 20 will be a hit or a critical hit, but that just means you're doubling your dice damage, and so maybe. So in some ways, that would be a no. Because is this ever going to happen? Some people would say, well, yeah, you can roll for it because you'll hit the dragon and do a critical hit on the roll of a 20, but your short bow is only d6 plus 1 damage. Even if you do a critical hit, you're only going to be doing 2d6 damage, and that's effectively a no. So that's effectively a no. So we'll put that in here. Though, if you still have to roll for hit points or something like that, for damage, it might effectively be a no. Because even if you score a hit, it's just not possible to score the damage. So this is more something like. So that's effectively a no. This is more like something that uses open-ended rolls. And we're about to go into open-ended rolls. Uses open-ended rolls. to allow extreme random numbers to be generated. This is something like MERP or Rollmaster. A Trekkie Tribble is here. Good morning. Good morning. I don't know if I've ever seen you in the chat before, but it's very good to have you. So here's to you. Here's to you, Trekkie Tribble. I may have to stop in just a moment and grab something else to drink or take a quick break or something else to drink because I forgot to load up here. Sable Phoenix says, I was reading something, some RPGs yesterday and came across a concept I hadn't seen before, a variation on open-ended rolls or exploding dice called split dice. If you roll a 6 on your d6, you can choose to split the dice, which means rolling 2d6 and taking the sum of that roll instead of the original value of the die. If you roll a 6, if you roll a 6 on a d6, you can choose to split the die, which means rolling 2d6 for that die if you're rolling several of them. And taking the sum of that roll instead of the original value of the die. Oh, that's interesting. That is interesting. I haven't ever seen that before either. Good morning, Mike. So if you really want to make something happen very rarely, that might be a good way to do it. The larger the die type, the harder that would be to pull off, and the more likely it would be to roll less than your initial roll. You would, of course, invert for critical fumbles. BGD says Easy D6 is essentially an open-ended roll system. Good morning, TSL Frontman. Oh, so Trekkie, it's Trekkie's first time on the show. Excellent. Yeah, that's it could work with D6s, but you're right. If you're talking about the split die and you're rolling D10s or you're rolling a D20 or something like that. I'll have to think about that. Okay, but something with like MERP or Rollmaster. Well, or I guess against the Dark Master. People were talking about that. I think that's true. We looked at against the Dark Master. Look at this. This is a tome of an RPG book. This is a real tome of an RPG book right here. This is kind of like the updated. Somebody came in and did basically an update of MERP. It's got Rollmaster in it too, but I would say a lot of like an update of MERP. And so I think that if I were going to play MERP again today, if that's what I wanted to play on this particular style of game, I would definitely take against the Dark Master. But in something like MERP, oh, here it is. Okay, the generation of open-ended rolls. Okay, so if a roll is open-ended, like in MERP, an initial, you're rolling D100. You're rolling D100 in all of this. So an initial roll of 1 to 100, roll over 95. Says over 95. So 96, 97, 98, 99, or 100. Calls for a second D100 roll to be made and added to your first roll. If the second roll is also over 95, a third roll is made and adds to the sum of the first two results. This process is continued until a roll under 96 occurs. The total obtained by this process is the result of an open-ended roll high. Theoretically, there's no limit to how big the total of such a roll could go. So there's a 5% chance then, 96, 97, 99, well, yeah, 5% chance that the D100, that's very, I mean, that's the same probability of a 20 on a D20 that you're going to go up. So that's like that is, I haven't thought about that before. So if you were doing it with a D20, then you could just say, all right, the critical part, and this does matter if you're separating damage away or not. You're separating damage into a separate roll or not. And I'm kind of thinking not. Mark was not. Okay. But you could just say, all right, your D20s are open-ended, and it matters how well you actually make an attack, because that would be a 5%. But on the other hand, an initial roll of your D100 roll of under 6. So on the other hand, so 10% of the time you're going to be open-ended on your roll one way or another, open-ended high or open-ended low. Calls for a second. And if you roll open-ended low, 1 to 5, you've got to make a second D100 roll to be made and subtracted from the first roll. If the second roll is over 95, then the third roll is made and subtracted from the total of the first two results. So if the first roll is 0 to 5, you know you're going open-ended low. But then if you roll all the way up, but it's down on 95 or more, 96 or more, then the third roll is made and subtracted from the total of these two results. The process is continued until a roll of under 96 occurs. The total obtained by this process is the result of the open-ended roll low. Theoretically, there is no limit to how small the total of such a roll could go. So, somebody's going to have to remind me whether or not critical damage is open-ended. Let's see. You could even do split dice for critical fumbles, where if you roll a 1 and you choose that to split that die and then roll snake eyes, that's when Arthur beheads himself drawing Excalibur. Especially with large dice, the chances of that happening would be astronomically low, but not impossible. Yeah, that's how I killed a war troll with only one hit of sweep and throws. 0, 0, 0, 0, 97, 72. Okay, so attack. Yeah, that would do it. See that allows the fun. Like, okay, and we can say, where does the fun come in? From a fantastic roll, or from the player's decisions and actions. But Mark makes the point. These Mark extra spelled to see. Mark makes the point that people do remember the fantastic rolls when something happened that otherwise wouldn't have. Let me see. Where is magic? I'm just looking at this right here. The Mert book. Oh, attacks. Okay, 50. Let me just go over here to page 50. All right, so attack resolution. An attack is resolved by the attacker making an open-ended attack roll, adding any applicable modifiers. Of course, they're modifiers, right? And then applying the modified roll to the appropriate attack table. Results are explained in section 8.3.1 and include hits delivered, fumbles and strikes, critical hits, modifications to resistance rolls. So, summary: the attacker makes an open-ended attack roll. If an unmodified result is obtained, proceed to step 4. Then also sometimes, so your if your unmodified result is like 0, 1 to 8, that's a possible fumble depending on what type of weapon you're using. You've got a possible fumble. Now, see, only some of the most complicated weapons have a fumble of like up to 8. So up to an 8% chance of fumble. But others have lower. All modifications are added to the roll. The appropriate roll is applied to the appropriate attack table. And then the opponent's defenses, there's a defensive, you have an attack bonus. So that's it says the modifiers, but one of the major modifiers is your attack, right? But another major modifier is the opponent's defensive bonus, which is a lot like the opponent's parry in One Ring. And then you consult a table to determine what type of how many hits you do. And the bigger you roll, oh yeah, that's right. So the bigger you roll. So if you've got this unmodified roll here, excuse me, on this roll table over here, so a one-handed slashing weapons attack table, and you do roll up to 150, and you could roll 150 because you've got perhaps a gigantic, modifier on your side and attack roll, or because of the open-ended roll and you just scored really high. So that's as far as it can go, though, a 150. And then you're scoring, and when that happens, you're scoring an E critical, which means the critical roll is going to be modified by +0. So it may be the case that criticals are not open-ended. Yeah, okay, criticals are not open-ended. Okay, so it's not as extreme as I remembered. Your your basic attack roll is open-ended. So your basic attack roll could throw you up into E criticals, which are the worst, which are modified by +20. But those rolls are not open-ended. But you'd get +20 to your roll. So you could roll really well on the attack roll and then really poor on damage. I want to make that note again over here. There's a few threads we're following here. But separating attacks from damage means that you can potentially do a great damage roll, a great attack roll, followed up by a really wimpy damage roll. And sometimes this can negate the thrill of the nat 20 crit. Hey, yeah, you not like me to write the word crit. Okay. Because you can all of a sudden, you double your dice damage and then all of a sudden you roll low. So I did we saw somebody and something we read, we said that in the event of a critical, you scored max die damage plus an additional roll. And I liked that because now, of course, you're still just rolling one die, but one damage die maxed out automatically. And so that ties that damage roll to the attack roll in a way that I like. Zero the Blade says, I know I can use the Pathfinder rules for my project, Traveler, because it fits better, but I don't know if it's allowed. Pathfinder is opened its rules, right? Like with the orc and things like that. So you should be able to. Vision, hello. Hey, Vision, good morning. A great attack with wimp damage is a constant thing in the wolf system. And that's why I'm thinking about unifying these things. Unifying the attack and damage rolls. If you make a big attack, a big attack roll means success. Thank you, Vision. Please do hit the stream like. The Trekkie Tribble says, that's why I enjoy the fate system, to be honest. Landing a big hit still feels great, but low damage is the enemy's fault for excellent luck defense rather than yours for poor damage. Yeah, so it's unified in... Well, no, it's unified in fate. So you're just one roll, and fate is active defense, right? Fate is also active defense. So if they counter your mega attack roll, it's because they did something well. Paragons and Prowlers is a D6 pool building system that makes your attack and damage roll both the same roll. Might be a good one to look at for how to make it work. I have never heard of that one. And make a note over here. Paragons and Prowlers. Okay. So let me just confirm that I'm right here. So when your attack roll is open-ended, let's say you fumble. So I don't want to be saying there's at least here in MERP that I'm looking at. I don't want to convey that things are more extreme than they actually are. So let's look at a fumble. So what happens if you fumble? Because a fumble is declared if you roll an unmodified roll of 1 to 8, and then depending on your weapon, though 1 to 8 is a possible fumble. So if an attack roll results in an F result, a fumble, the attack is fumbled or failed, and a roll must be made on the fumble failure tables. A fumble failure roll is only modified by one special modifier listed at the bottom of the table being used. Okay, so that's not open-ended low. So neither your critical roll nor your fumble roll is actually open-ended. So weapon fumbles. Now, what is that special modifier listed at the table? Well, that's for your weapon type. So if you have a more dangerous weapon, you're going to have to add to your fumble roll. So just as an example, okay, let's go over to these tables. So just to see what our situation is. Like, so for instance, if we have the hand arms fumble table, and we are modifying this roll so that most you can roll is 120. Okay, so they go from negative 49 to 5. It looks like every one of them does that. So you're not going to be able to roll a negative 49 because you're rolling D100 and then you're subtracting 20 for one-handed concussion weapons, 10 for one-handed, subtracting 10 for one-handed slashing weapons. It's a plus 0 for two-handed weapons, a plus 10 for pole arms, and plus 20 for mounted weapons. So that's why a lot of the positives above 111 all have to do with being mounted, because that's the only way that you would roll them. You're not going to accidentally roll them through an open-ended critical roll. But, okay, if you're fighting with a sword, what's the worst thing you can do? Well, the worst thing you can do is a 90, poor execution. You attempt to maim yourself as your weapon breaks. You take a C/crit. So you actually do inflict a critical hit upon yourself with a C. A C slashing crit. A C slashing crit is one in which it's a plus 0. It's a plus 0 roll. So it would be just a D100 roll. So yeah, if you rolled two 100s in a row, well, if you rolled, if you rolled 1 to 4 and then a 100 and then a 100, you would slash your own side, down unconscious, and die in 3 rounds due to massive internal organ damage. That's with a one-handed weapon. Well, or no, if you roll a 90, it's also well, no, actually, there's a lot of ways to kill yourself. If you roll an 80, you'd roll neck strike, severs carotid artery, neck broken, dies in 1 round of intense agony. So you would have to roll high in order to inflict the critical on yourself. But if you inflict the critical on yourself, you could do some pretty terrible stuff to yourself. Like knocked to the side of the head, knocked out for 6 hours with a strike to the head, plus 15 hits, which is like your hit points. If no helm, dies instantly. Okay, so so when you swing your sword, you are at risk of killing yourself. What about using damage tables? D. Jadavan says. What about using damage tables? 1d4 is equal to or less than 1d3. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Well, we are going to look at Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark is coming up. Or you could look at Blades in the Dark. It's on the list. That's got to be on the short list to look at, which does away with dice determining damage at all and inflicts levels of harm based on your position, how risky your action is, and your effect. So one of the issues here, one of the issues that I had was that systems that tend, well, okay, wait a minute. There's one other thing I was going to say up here in One Ring, or the One Ring, even more generous type in allowing characters to roll for success, because the Gandalf rune on the D12 they called that the fate die, is a success. So you're always picking up D6s and D12s. And so that's a 1 in 12 chance. Even if you're unskilled, and I thought that was interesting. So it's definitely, even if you're unskilled, that's not all that great. But if you're unskilled, you can still roll a fate die, and there's a 1 in 12 chance you roll the Gandalf rune and you're okay. So what is that as a percentage? 1 divided by 12. That's an 8. So that's an 8.3% chance, which is an 8.3% chance. So a little bit more generous. I mean, obviously it's a D12. So 8.3% chance of success right there. You have to play a fit ID system. Myself, but my friends all have rave reviews for combat there. What is FITD? Oh, using 1d4 is equal to or greater than 1d12 sides, but different damage tables for categories of weapons, sword through plasma rifle. I'm trying to stay a forest in the dark. Forest in the dark. Okay. I don't know that one either. Most combats in Blades in the Dark end up being resolved by a single roll. That's because your skills aren't skills; they're actually actions in and of themselves. You can have combats that split into more than one roll, like you're fighting an expert duelist. So you have to succeed one action to break his defenses, and then another to actually hit him. We'll have to do Blades in the Dark soon. Okay. Chance of success, but systems. So my point with Mark was systems that tend to allow you to roll for extreme success also include the possibility rolling for extreme failure. For instance, MERP and Rollmaster. I wonder, and against the Dark Master, I wonder if they changed that. I wonder if they kept that all the same, or if they tried to improve that. Or had some kind of improvement to it. Combat. Attacks, 187. So there, okay, 187. So you do have a combat bonus again. The combat bonus represents your overall effectiveness with a given weapon. To make an attack roll, players make an open-ended roll and add their combat bonus to the roll and any other applicable modifiers. Then they must subtract the target's defense from their roll. This is called the attack roll. The final result of the attack roll is then cross-referenced with the appropriate attack table. See page 495 to 401 for the weapon, spell, and other forms of attack used, and the armor type of the target. So that's where 498. So the armor the target is wearing is accounted for on the attack table. An attack is a full action that occurs in the appropriate phase. Okay. The above rule about ineffective. For their attacks to be effective, characters must have at least a +0 or higher in combat remaining. If an effect or modifier lowers the combat modifier of a character below +0, that character's attacks are considered ineffective for that round. They can still take the attack action, but their attacks will automatically inflict no damage or critical strikes. And so the above rule about ineffective attacks is intended to reduce meaningless dice rolling at the table. If your group finds it too harsh, you may decide to allow characters with negative CMBs, combat modifiers, to make attack rolls as normal, but doubling the clumsy range of their weapon. See weapon fumbles later. So that's interesting. So actually they're trying to discourage you from, hey, I'm just going to roll for it. If you have got, for some reason, your attack modifier is down below 0, they're saying you're now ineffective in combat. Don't bother rolling. On the other hand, there's an optional rule to allow it to keep going, to allow you to be able to roll potentially well enough. Because you could roll open-ended. So that's interesting. So edged attack table, we got something that's similar here. Your roll versus the target's armor with an attack with an edged weapon. So it's like edged weapon. So your attack roll is your modifier, but what type of weapon you're using and what type of armor your opponent is wearing is handled by referencing the correct table. I'm on edged attack weapon with like medium armor or something like that. And that tells me the number of hit points of damage I do and then whether or not I inflict a critical. So, okay, so very similar over here. Critical strikes, it does say over here, are non-open-ended. Okay. So that stayed very much the same between Merp and against the Dark Master. Games based on Blades in the Dark are forged in the dark, just like Apocalypse World spinoffs are powered by the Apocalypse. Ah, I see. DC 20 is doing attack and fixed damage. Each 5 above the AC of the opponent, you make more damage. Yeah, it's one of the ones that I'm more interested in as well. Mark's system, the Cool Name RPG, is one that I'm, as far as the ones that are in development. Cool Name RPG and then the Dungeon Coach system, the DC 20 system. I'm signed up to know when something's released over there. Is there any other one that's in development? I don't know anything about... well, any of the other ones. Good morning. Good morning, Frederick. Despite him only ever doing 5e before. Well, I think the improvement to the action economy based on Pathfinder is a good idea. I'm still wondering if I want to do something like that. But I'm interested to know how that plays out. Extreme failure. So systems that tend to allow you to roll for extreme success also tend to include, or that allow you to roll for extreme success also tend to include the possibility of rolling for extreme failure, such as MERP or Rollmaster. And those are systems, and most of these systems that are symmetrical between the PCs and the NPCs, which is traditionally been most of my game design philosophy. Most of my game design philosophy has been in here. And I would say most of the games that we play are in there. I mean, gameplay in this style, going back to Hero Quest, in a way. Now, some things that heroes can do that monsters can't. But, an attack roll is, the same for a monster as it is for a player. Although I guess you could argue that slightly, because there's a difference in probabilities between the black shields and the white shields. But the process is the same. Because even if it were symmetrical, you could have like bad guys with less attack values. But the process is the same. But I've been thinking more and more about asymmetrical systems. Where we're just going to draw a distinction between our heroes, and I like using the term heroes. So we're just drawing a distinction between our heroes and our, especially the bad guys. Between heroes and bad guys. And also this, which to me is a comparatively new idea. I'm not exactly sure when it first appeared in RPGs. I'm sure somebody may know, but I would say that the all player facing roles is relatively new, and also potentially player facing roles. I would like a system which is scalable to like a full RPG, or one that is more Hero Quest like dungeon RPG. That might not be possible. Dungeon exploration. That could potentially be single player or GM-less. Single player, or at least GM-less. Maybe it's run by an app or whatever else. I don't know. But I like cooperative games. I've been enjoying a lot over the number of years. Asymmetrical systems tend to play a lot faster. Yes. Good morning, Tomocrat. Good morning. I hope you are productive this morning. Tomocrat was with me on the productivity stream this morning. I haven't thought about that one in a while. That's right. So Indestructible is also working on one. I'll have to look at. That's what he's doing, right? For some reason, what's going on with Vagabond, I don't really remember. I'm gonna have to go back and look at Vagabond again. Okay, it was a D20. I'm just looking, so it is a D20 roll, D20 system. Okay, but why not? So what we were basically talking about was, why not use this idea, use the asymmetry here, and only bring out, why can't we just have what people like and then throw out what people don't like? Why can't we just do that? If people like rolling epically high to attack a foe. I mean, it could be to succeed any kind of action, but to attack a foe, whatever, to attack a foe and score a big hit from the dice, why not allow it? But likewise, people tend to not like it. People tend to not like when they critical fumble and kill themselves. That's not equally fun. And like I said, I'm not sure that that adds the same amount of funds, but yet they've traditionally been together. But people tend not like. So why don't we just not have that? Why not just not have that side? Most of our great heroes in storytelling, if you're trying to do things storytelling related anyway, most of our great heroes in storytelling and stuff do not die or have problems because they have accidentally done something like that to themselves. So why not just have that? So this makes something like what Mark is doing, something like, because if you think that just the roll of a D20 and 5% is too likely, because it's also just hey, you know, if you're doing something like, hey, if you roll a 20, then it's you just are successful. Now, like in 5e, the rolls of a 20 is not an automatic success. Although a lot of people, I think, play it that way because they want something to happen when the 20 comes up. But your difficulty, your chances of being successful are not scaling with the difficulty. The chances of extreme success are not scaling with the difficulty of the activity. If it's always just, you know, the roll 20, you know, roll a D20 or the Gandalf rune or something like that. Sometimes Mark's open-ended high on a Cool Name RPG open-ended high rolls allows for exactly that, especially if it unifies the attack roll and the damage roll. Well, your attack roll high, if it goes high enough, allows you to do something really dramatic against that troll. Good morning, Dungeon Master. Good morning. But if there's no open-ended low, you're not going to be doing dramatic failure. Or not so dramatic failure. You just roll low and miss. Now, okay, that seems to work. But now, okay, I mean, so fine. All right, that seems simple enough. Okay, but now how does that relate to the bad guy? People tend to like it when they are able to avoid some major attack by a great defensive roll. And that may be one of the reasons people like active defense. One reason people may like active defense. But people tend to not like it when the bad guy super crits them. So that's the asymmetry right there. That, oh, can the goblin kill me? Well, yeah, I mean, the goblin's got a sword. Yeah, the goblin might be able to kill you. And if we're doing open-ended high, then which is what we're doing right here, there's no chance the goblin's going to fumble, but the goblin could super crit you and, do the merc carotid artery strike on you. And that seems not fun. PH says, I found a good way to scale things and make them interesting is to change the mechanics according to the tiers the characters achieve. Different mechanics change the feeling while playing. Well, that you could do that too. So if you're talking about like different character levels or something like that, you could decide who. Right? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that's where we're going. So in like a lower tier. In a lower tier, the enemy may crit you, but not later. There also may be some way to integrate that more directly into character levels. Like some of the games we've been seeing, like if you've got a certain, if you're fighting a monster that's a certain number of levels higher than you or something like that, or has more hit dice than your levels or something like that, there was a penalty applied or something like that. And that could, depending on how the penalty worked and things, that could prevent you from going into crit territory. So we add this in by having an active defense roll. That can open into high. So we disallow open-ended bad guy attack rolls. Or, which is what PH was just talking about, or we allow or disallow this as part of the bad guy's rank. Minion, mini boss, whatever you want to call it, mini boss, boss, etc. Maybe you don't have a tremendous number of categories there, but that could be one way to do it. This is a minions, you don't have to worry about that. When do people like critical fumbles? Or fumbles or critical failures? When it happens to the bad guy. So one thing that we could say is just that bad guys rolls could be the one that is open-ended low. If you're forbidding them from having open-ended high, just say they've got open-ended low. Now, if you're comparing active attack, if you are comparing values in an active attack and active defense game, the difference in the rolls could give you your critical. Either way, positive or negative. Are you seeing games that are doing this? D. Jadavan says it's boring rolling too many damage dice, like 68 from some spells. I think 3DX is max. If you need more, roll bigger dice and use damage tables, which you can calibrate to different damage, sword or rifle. Both can be 1d8, but the damage represented by the roll will be different. You could do that. I think you could do that. PH says, my group likes critical fumbles when they are ridiculous and humiliating, but not deadly. Yeah, I would say that too. You get the laugh out of something when something ridiculous or humiliating happens, but it's not deadly because of the roll. So that's one option, is to eliminate the deadly fumbles and just keep the ridiculous and humiliating in. All right. If you're comparing values, okay. But on the other hand, in open-ended, in player-facing environments, or player-facing or games with player-facing roles. Oh. Yeah, roles. The PC would roll for defense. And then you could just allow an open-ended high roll for their defense. I mean, that solves the problem. The problem with, I think, the open-ended rolls, it's what, I mean, the player-facing roles, is that this means that player-facing roles often means the bad guys auto hit. And that, I mean, I agree that sometimes makes them feel they are not part of the world in the same way as the PCs and other characters or whatever. That, okay, because of the asymmetry in the way we're going to resolve this. But you would allow an open-ended high roll for defense. That way you could always escape, so that the bad guy's just got some kind of target number that he attacks you with. And if you can roll higher than that, then you have dodged in some way, and your open-ended high, your roll is high, so you could potentially get, slip out of the way, do the epic and heroic slip out of the way from a mega attack. That would give you, that would mean that they're not ever going to critical you, but then again, they're not ever going to critical fail either. Of course, my problem with, even though I tend to like active defense, active attack, and active defense, it is often difficult to justify from the game design perspective. Especially if both sides have the same random number generator. Like rolling a d20. The only way to make, because yes, okay, I got a +5 you roll, you got a +3, both of us roll a d20 and we'll see who hit who. Okay, but you're adding the same random number generator to both sides. Yes, in any one particular fight, it could go the other way because this person could roll high and this person could roll low, and that could be overwhelm the modifiers and all of that. Yes, you could totally have that happen. But on the other hand, you're doubling the number of dice for I don't think adding much, because you're adding the same random number on dice. The way to make this work is to have asymmetry in the random number generation. On both sides. And a classic example of this is Hero Quest. Has different symbols on the dice with different probabilities. probabilities, and you roll different numbers of dice between attacking, defending, heroes, monsters, all of that. So that's why that works, I think. It's still a rather random system in that particular case. We talked about that. But that's why something like that works, because you're not having both sides roll the same random number generation. Dungeon Master says, my fumbles usually just result in a missed turn, as you have to attend to the fumble, restring a bow, pick up a weapon, pull an X out of a door frame, etc. D. Jadavan says, are you creating a generic RPG system like GURPS? If yes, will you do point-based power spells, feats? Yeah, I want to be able to, ideally that was the goal. The original goal was to be able to do an RPG system that's generic and could be applied to several different, any different world, but all the different worlds that I was thinking about creating. So yeah, I was thinking about generic. I would do all the points though behind the scenes. Do the point value behind the scenes so that when you're creating characters and things like that, you're not actually trying to tally up points, so many points like you do in GURPS. PH says, what if player-facing roles are made only for minions and there are GM roles only for bosses? Yeah, you could do that too. Yes, you could do that too. If the bosses are the ones that are more peer with the PCs, then you could totally do that. Probably they roll different numbers of dice. Okay, so continuing on that line of thought. The Cool Name RPG has you calculate a value for your well, I forget exactly what the term was, but it's basically your competence at the task. And the GM generates a value that's your target number. Your competence rating is turned into dice through a table that are rolled against the target number. And the dice explode. And it's not just if you roll the highest total, but but individual dice explode. I mean, I do think that's pretty cool. But then one thing that he has changed, which I have not seen this, is probably out there. I mean, most things are out there, but I haven't particularly seen this. But he does have several different skill levels. Okay. But he doesn't use, so Cool Name has skill levels, but doesn't use skill levels to determine your competence, which is interesting, but doesn't use skill level to determine the player's competence. Instead, that is what determines the target number. So he wants you to think like this. Oh, I can't just copy this part. So he says the game master needs to determine what skill or what skill level a person would have to have in order to reliably accomplish this task. And he says that these things are unskilled. And I'm with him that you don't need a ton of different types of skill levels. Unskilled, novice, skilled, expert, master, and legendary. And then this sets your DC. So in this case, the DCs are kind of low. Base DC 2, novice 3. It requires someone who's skilled, then its base DC is 6, expert is 8, master is 12, legendary is 20. Okay. So skill level indicates target number. What do we think about that? D. Jadavan says, I think that equaling fighter and mage is a flaw in most RPGs, especially with equal progression. To be an equal fighter, I need to be martial key master, immortal cultivator. Vanilla fighter is chow for dragons. I'm becoming more and more against the that intended balance. The balancing tends to do it in the way that the fighter becomes another caster. I mean, I think that's an issue with 5e, right? And it seems like that happens a lot. It's probably similar in like Pathfinder as well. Hey, wait a minute. The wizard gets to do all these cool things. So basically the fighter also needs magic. It's called something else and whatever else, but there's got to be cool special abilities and things like that to do. The ones that do not shy away from just extreme niche protection is the ones that we've looked at like that are more interesting to me. Especially like with Lamentations, was just if you're a fighter, then that's what you do. You fight. If you want to be something else, then you're going to be skilled in something else. But then your role, so your role over here is determined by an attribute plus a skill, and he's still working with this idea of, and this part was very, very early, so you don't want to say too much about that, but was still, which could be a shtick. How do you spell shtick? Your character uses solve problems like magic or just being really strong. And and he said at the moment, and this is early on, is always added to combat. Because like I said, I like the idea. I was looking at something like, well, no, why can't we just have a skill that's called warrior? I mean, that's pretty common, and I think we can see a lot more of that. Or a skill that's called thief. And so if a role comes up where, okay, it would be something like thief, and this is very much like GURPS bang skills. I think those are probably underused. But then the question is, okay, I'm a thief. Do I attack? Well, how well do I attack? Well, maybe the answer is you don't really attack very well. And then you don't get to add your, if you've got a level 10 fighter, if you got fighter skill at 10 and you got thief skill at 10, your thief is not adding 10 to combat. They're adding 10 to other things that are related to doing things with the thief. Because my problem here is, or my question here is, does this make all the characters too similar? I understand what is going on here. I understand. But it seems like you are making the characters too similar. I was having people adding flat numbers, and I'm still continuing to think about this. But you could have we seen a system where you have this is completely the opposite of the direction that I was going, but sometimes it's good to think about the opposite. I do like determining your role. This is the same thing that a lot of people, but Mark and I came to the same conclusion here based on attribute plus relevant skill. I was using flat numbers. But you could make all of that dice. Wait, is this getting more Savage Worlds like? But you could make all of that dice. So you've got some levels, levels of your attribute relevant skill, which is not always applied. And the relevant skill, not every role has a relevant skill. Levels of attribute give you certain dice, and then skill level. So, but in this case, I would return skill level over here to being something that you roll. Skill level gives you certain dice. Then you could let the dice explode. It becomes increasingly unlikely that you're going to be able to score something really high. And I'm preferring a I'm preferring something with a unified action resolution mechanic, because what I always bring up with a situation like this is, well, hey, I want to craft this legendary weapon. Well, no, in order to craft that legendary weapon, you're really going to have to be a high-level skill in that. You can't be a novice and accidentally do it. But maybe that's okay. Maybe that's okay. Yeah, exactly. That's why the fighter's the only one who gets attack bonuses in Lamentation of the Flame Princess. Yeah. All you can upgrade is strength. Did I write something wrong? What about bonus damage from high attributes? Okay, so okay, I do not. What about bonus damage from high attributes? You could do that, but if you're unifying your attack and your damage roll, then like if the attack is based on strength and your skill level at fighting, then and your attribute is high, then just because that's high, you would potentially be able to get more damage. I want to talk about and I think this is where we'll leave it. But I'm going to keep these notes here as stuff I'm currently thinking about. But the next thing to do, I guess I'll put it down here. Next topic is, does Index Card RPG call it effort dice? It might be called effort dice, which gives you some other roll depending on what other die, depending on what type of tool you're using. Wait, it is. No, it is called effort dice. Okay, so if you say it's time to roll for effort. Effort dice from Index Card RPG and how that might relate. And you know, it might be time to also talk about effect dice, to consider the effect dice from Cortex. They spell it just Cortex from Cortex, because in this case, you would probably be rolling a handful of different types of dice. And you could use something like Cortex's effect dice to give some kind of penalty or something to your opponent. So I think the next time we return to RPG design, let's talk about effort dice from Index Card RPG and how that could be incorporated into a system like this, and then also potentially effect dice from Cortex. So kind of breaking back down what I had and trying to build back up. So this would be like building it back, except for not using static modifiers, but using all dice. Yeah, the effort dice, to me, that sounds like something that you're expending fatigue for. I'm not exactly sure why they call that, but it's more like tool or equipment. Dice is really more what it's like. Effort, that tends to imply something like fatigue that you're going to be running out of, like or hope in One Ring, like the hope that allows you to roll an extra success die. I'm going to save this. Morning Grind RPG notes. We've certainly looked at a lot of different RPGs by now. So time to start pulling some stuff together, I think, and comparing and contrasting. Sable says, I'm kind of amazed that nobody's come up with a similar concept, ICRPG's effort die. It's such a great concept. BGD says, effort in ICRPG is just the generalization of quantized PC action upon a task over time, as HP of damage are used in combat encounters. Well, we're going to be talking about adding HP to other things. That was an early idea that it turns out that does. But no, the effort dice, the effort dice I was thinking here. Oh. I was trying to remember how that works. So the effort die is not added in. Once you have made a successful attempt, it's time to roll for effort. Okay. We still need to look at that. So that's not I was thinking you were adding the effort die to your roll. We will see. Blades in the Dark does a similar idea as ICRPG's effort die, but uses clocks instead. I think those are the only two systems I know of that do anything like that, though. All right. I have got to get out of here. So I have got to do things before a meeting with Brianna, and then I will see everybody tonight, 7 o'clock p.m. for our mega story discussion of the structure of the Barbie movie tonight. I think this is going to be a fantastic conversation, probably one for the books. We got Cameron, Doug, Brianna, and me. So I will see everybody tonight, 7 o'clock p.m. We'll be right here. Be creative, be constructive, and until I see you tonight, grind on.